Hello, everybody, and welcome to podcast number 35 of The Real Estate Show. I'm Cherise, Selley, and with me is the amazing Shawna Uehling. We are part of Selley Group Real Estate here in Colorado Springs, and we love our clients, don't we?
We do.
We love what we're doing, and we love bringing a little bit more information, a depth, and substance as you're trying to navigate through discerning what's happening in this real estate time. Everybody's trying to figure it out. We would love for you to learn from our own experiences, as well as some of the great articles that we have access to in our real estate business. So Shawna, we talked about it in the last episode. I'll just refresh quickly that the average sales price in January for homes in El Paso County was just under $500,000. So it was at $494,954. But a year ago, well, more than a year ago, so January of 21, it was actually January of 21, it was $433,581.
Okay.
So the market was up 14.2% January to January.
It's pretty big.
A pretty big jump. We were down just a bit from December, but we're climbing back up, and nothing seems to be slowing down here. So still grossly undersupplied like the rest of the nation. But there's good strategies that we're learning through this. And Shawna, with you being a part of real estate, a part of our group, a part of me, like I'm so happy you've been around to see all the changes happening over the last over 6 years now that you've been helping people with real estate, as well as the fact that you were an investor years ago.
Yeah.
Before this whole thing. I think you have so much to speak into now. You have so much sage. And I would love to just say, what's on your heart? What have you learned, like related to a buyer especially?
I've learned that I've really love to help people, and I get so excited or more as they get in the process. It's just fun, all the different aspects that you get to, when you're first seeing a house and then you find the one you love and then offering on that and getting it. But one thing I've learned is, in order for me to help you, it helps me if the buyer is really ready mentally.
How do you help them get ready mentally in a market that is like literally, it's like you're deep sea diving?
Yeah.
And you can't, and you have no tank.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Right. I think having those early on conversations and really having them explore what they really are looking for, narrowing down that field, going out and looking at the properties, and there's not enough time where it used to be, well, let me think on it. Let me go. I love this house, but let me think on it, sleep on it overnight. There's no time for that anymore. So the more prepared you are with what you're looking for, you have to be ready to pull the trigger, and also be ready with your financing in place, and really be on your game so that you're ready to strike when the right house comes. Because I've had so many clients through the years, they weren't quite ready, and they had second thoughts. They lost the house. And then a lot of times, there wasn't another one. They still came back to that house that they lost, and
thinking about it.
Yeah. And, that's kind of heartbreaking to see, but as ready as you can be mentally for the process. And there's a lot to think about, and it's a big step. It's the biggest thing you're ever going to buy, but the more mentally prepared you are, the more decisive you can be.
The buyer has to be all in.
Yeah.
Before they make an offer.
Yes.
They have to be all in to realize that they might not get the first two or three or four homes that they offer on, especially if they're, they have to know, I think also from our standpoint, that typically right now, we can't find a single comp. Even I was talking about it on the last podcast, this $1 million home that we offered on and didn't get. There were so many offers, and I had a cash buyer. But the comps only say the 9s, but the list price was at just under 1.1.
Yeah.
Comps don't make sense anymore. Mentally, part of that process of getting prepared is a buyer cannot base their decision to buy on a history of a neighborhood selling
that
happened 6 months ago. The market isn't 6 months ago.
Yeah.
The market is going ahead so fast. You have to be ahead of the comps.
It's so true.
And it's so hard because in that sense, it's like we used to have a really easy framework. I wouldn't say easy, but I would say it was a deliberate framework of saying, here's really the range that you can offer, and this makes sense, and we can fully justify it. Well, now it's more of you have to explain the risk that the buyer is willing to take, not based on comps, but based on what can they afford to pay?
Right.
And how much above that are they really willing to go?
Yeah. I mean, it used to be, let's not, make sure there's at least one higher than you in the neighborhood so you're not the highest. Now you might be the highest, but like you just said, things went up 15% last year.
I remember like last year, how many homes that were sold thinking either as the listing agent or the buyer's agent going, well, that's the highest sale around there.
Yeah.
And literally like 2 or 3 months later.
2 or 3 months, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And it may not always be that way. And we're not saying it will. You don't throw all logic and reason out the door, but
No.
you have to redefine what that logic is.
Right.
In this market.
And be committed to the process. And sometimes people's process is longer than what you think it might be. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a house, and that's the end goal, and that's
right.
what we're trying to help people navigate.
And the absolute ability to have home ownership still is the biggest blessing and gift.
It is.
And I mean, it's so true. And, there's corporate entities buying homes. There's all of these other things happening.
Yeah.
There's even governmental entities buying neighborhoods, not here in Colorado Springs necessarily, but we're talking nationally on that happening. And so many dynamics of real estate is changing to go into investment portfolios and this and that. So the actual homeowner, the buyer who is just a person, it's kind of a bigger deal these days than ever.
Yeah, you're competing with a lot of different entities, as you were mentioning.
You are.
That weren't there before.
So a buyer has to also have their hat on, and they have to have that mental preparedness of that they're not going up against 3 or 4 people just like them. They could be going up against a big corporate entity, but we have some strategies for that too.
Yeah, we do. And, a lot of sellers still prefer, if they can, they would love to see their house go to someone who will love it, and like they did. And, there is something to be said about, a actual person buying the house.
We can't discriminate, against it,
No, we can't.
or there's incredible and justifiable fair housing laws. But one thing that I think sellers still have the ability to choose is, do they want to sell to some big conglomerate entity or not?
Yeah.
So they have to make that decision.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't mind at all, and other times, it's whatever offer comes in, and it's at the end of the day, it's their choice.
That's
to
right.
pick the best offer for them, no matter. Doesn't always boil down to price.
That's exactly right. And Shawna, another thing, going back to this buyer thing, and going back to, on either side, working with buyers or sellers, I would say, and there was a good article about this in Realtor magazine, that honesty sells in today's market. And I think that's something that I've always held as probably one of the most essential things about our group.
You have.
And maintaining that, I would much rather tell all the dirt on a house, or the risks of it, than try to make something appear better than it is for our client. And then they're surprised later. And so we tell what we know. We can't tell what we don't know.
Right.
Right. But honesty is selling because, Shawna, I mean, you've worked with so many people that are not even here to buy a home, right?
Yeah, and they really rely on our eyes and our expertise.
And what do they appreciate? If you're going in a home, and it might be a 1990 home, what would they appreciate you telling them about?
Like the house smells and
Totally.
You know, it comes down to honesty, and when they can trust you to know that you have their best interests at heart and you're looking at the things that would be important to them, which is different for each person.
It is.
It's huge.
But some things are universal, like, hey, that water heater is going to go out.
Yeah.
Or the furnace has never been changed or cleaned.
Yeah. Or you know what,
roof.
guys, we just had a huge hailstorm come through this area 6 months ago. They don't know that because they're from out of state.
Exactly.
But we know it because we know what just happened. You know, we know regionally all the stuff that happens with that. Every summer there's problems with that.
So, I mean, that's...
Check the roof.
That so accelerates somebody's knowledge base. And for a seller, not letting them disguise things that they actually know about the property, but disclosing them up front.
Right.
Honesty sells. Mm-hmm. I have to say there's been so many times where we've sent back a seller's property disclosure because the seller didn't fill a thing out on it or just left it, very barren. But they had just said 5 minutes before that they had some leak in the roof and
I didn't know I had to write that down.
And they might not, and honestly, that form is pretty confusing.
Yeah.
And, but the truth is honesty sells. And from our standpoint as agents, that is one thing that we value. We value that from our clients and our sellers, that there's a transparency there and people are going to trust. Real estate is imperfect. Homes are imperfect, but people make the difference. People make the difference in the transaction.
Yeah.
And honesty is a glue that keeps trust, because when there is mistrust in a deal, how bad does it fall apart?
Right.
I mean, that's the worst. So I think that I'm so glad that this was brought up, within our Realtor forum in the magazine, but I have to say it's definitely a key to how we do business and how we want our clients to also work with other people.
Well, yeah, and Selley Group in particular, I know there's different agents I've worked with through the years. There's we've created a name for ourselves that is very full of trust, and people respect us and they know what they're getting when they come to our group because, we tend to deal just straight up with people.
That's right.
And it's something that you can, really depend on. And when you're working with people, that are going to be honest.
That's right.
And it's a good thing.
So, all right. Well, Shawna, good talk. We never have enough time.
I know.
But I'm so grateful that we could share this and continue to reach out to us, audience. If you have questions, if you're thinking about real estate, if you're thinking about listing your home, we would love to talk to you about listings. We need to get more inventory out there in the marketplace to help stimulate some things in the market. And I just want to say we really value this time to be able to speak into your life, and we hope that it helps you make really good decisions through the process of real estate.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining in.